And retirement is really good, I'm telling you. All right, you're ready. You're recording.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll bring the meeting to order. Tonight's meeting is being convened in compliance with Governor Cuomo's executive orders, which suspends certain provisions of the open meetings law to allow municipal boards to convene meetings via video conferencing without in-person attendance by the public. The public has been provided with the ability to view, hear, and participate in the meeting, and a transcript of the meeting will be provided at a later date. The link to the live stream of the meeting has been provided to the public, and a video of the meeting will be made available on public access television, as well as a link on the town's website. Further, all submission materials and agendas are available to be viewed on the town's website. There's a quorum of board members present for this evening, so we are off and running. Our first item tonight is an informal appearance before the board for the Chappaqua Crossing East Village. This is the site development plan approval, planning board application for wetlands permit, steep slopes permit, tree permit, and stormwater pollution prevention plan approval, 480 Bedford Road. So I guess what we should do tonight is check to see where we are on certain issues, and then go through the applicant's responses to our last meeting and changes, and then we'll take it from there. I guess the first issue is if we can just try to get some sort of sense of where we are right now with regard to the master subdivision. Apparently there was an addition to the agenda, which is not on my agenda, but for an extension because the master subdivision approval lapsed October 7th or so. So Clinton, should we take that up as the first matter of course so that we actually extend it and so we are actually talking about something that we can talk about?
Probably a wise decision.
Oh man. Okay. Why don't we do that then? I don't have it before me, but I guess it came in late today. So we have a request for an extension of the master subdivision that was approved last spring by the planning board. And apparently it's a 6-month approval. It has lapsed. It's been caught, thank goodness. And so the applicant has asked for a 90-day extension retroactive to, I think, October 7th, is it, Clinton?
Yes.
And to 90 days, which would be January 5th, 6th, 7th, something like that.
January 5.
Okay. All righty. Any input from staff on this? And if not, any questions from board members on this request for the extension?
I have no issue with the extension.
Thanks, Sabrina. Anyone, any questions? If not, is there a motion to grant the requested extension?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Dick?
Yes.
Eldad?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I'm yes, so it's 4-0, motion's carried. So I think now we can speak a little bit more safely about this application. So perhaps the applicant can tell us right now where we are in terms of the master subdivision, because that just has to get done before we can take on any additional action on this application. So is there an update? We're safe now to talk about it because we have the extension, but is there an update in terms of what the ETA is here?
Yes, we do have an update, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Andrew Tong on behalf of my colleagues at Chappaqua Crossing, who are also joining me on the screen. We appreciate this opportunity to give you an update not only on the master subdivision, but other approvals that are ongoing with Chappaqua Crossing. But we'll start with the master subdivision, and I will ask my associate Matt Steinberg to put up the plat. As you may recall, your board approved the master subdivision in April and sent us off to satisfy conditions for the town engineer's letter and also the health department. We had to supply to the health department a number of other documents. And interestingly, in this particular subdivision, as Matt's bringing that up, It's a little different than most in that this subdivision creates 6 parcels within the Chappaqua Crossing site. And it also provides for easements to the water and sewer lines that are to serve all the different parcels. And in fact, some of those lines or all of those lines had either been constructed or were under construction during this period. And so in some cases, as they were constructed, for a number of reasons, they were not put in place exactly in the location where they had been, the easements had been designed and in fact recorded for an earlier requirement of your board. So we've had to, and Matt, perhaps you could blow that up a little bit. We've had to go back in and, no, that's just the main one. Go back in and both finish the installation of the water lines and sewer lines, and then adjust the subdivision easements as shown here. Still too small to see, but you get kind of the idea. So that the easements conform to where the lines actually were installed. This is not unusual. Oftentimes in other municipalities, the recording of the easements is left to after the subdivision is completed and the construction is completed so that the as-built lines conform to the easement lines on the plat. So we are in the last round of reviewing the plat. We got what we thought was the final edition this past Monday. We actually found a couple of things that have to be adjusted. We expect to be able to turn it around and resubmit it to the health department. During this past period, we've also submitted one to the health department and gotten their comments and have satisfied both their comments, which include the provision of will serve letters from the town engineer. We have those now, and we'll be submitting that with the final plat to the health department for their final review and hopefully sign off so that we can come back to the planning board in short order for your signature, Mr. Cioli's review, final review, and then your signature. So I think all the substantive issues have been addressed with regard to the master subdivision, and it's just now a matter of finishing the paperwork, if you will.
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
So it might be a couple more weeks, and we might actually see this before the end of the year.
Yes, we hope to do that. The health department has been, as we all have, somewhat constrained under the pandemic regulations.
Right.
But they've been quite responsive to Mark Ratz in our office, and they've reviewed this once. So hopefully, unless something else happens with the health department, they can review it relatively quickly and get it back to us.
Okay.
So I think that's positive news that we have on that.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
We do have the other issue, not as pressing, of course, but it would be great to wrap it all up. It seems to me, from what I understand, we have perhaps 6, a half dozen, perhaps 8, 10 conditions still outstanding from the retail approval. And I'm wondering what the status might be on those as well.
Matt Steinberg, my colleague, is the keeper of the famous matrix, or the first matrix. And between he and Dave Walsh of Summit, I think they can update you on where we stand there. Matt, you're on mute.
Yeah. So let me bring up.
While he's doing that, let me, one of the items that Sabrina mentioned in her memo, that was a condition of the retail site plan, was the intersection improvements at the Sawmill Parkway and Roaring Brook Road. We've heard from Maser this week, Maser Engineering, that we have both DOT conceptual approval and perhaps more importantly, DEP conceptual approval on those intersection adjustments. That means that's good news.
Yeah,
That means we can proceed with major preparing construction documents for that work. And together with an application that will be completed by the applicant in the town, Mr. Scioli has offered to do that with us as the town's representative. We can submit that application to DOT for that work with the pre-approval, if you will, on the concept plan from both DOT and DEP. So that's, again, progress that we can report.
yeah, that's good news. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, that was good to put that in. I brought up on the screen the CO conditions matrix, which I think everyone has seen in the past, that we've been coordinating between our office and the town engineer's office. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I'll go through the general categories. There are a few of the items that are related to the as-built drawings, which we're coordinating with the surveyor. Andy sort of alluded to that with the master subdivision because those are the same improvements that are being picked up on those as-builts. So those are in progress to have those completed. There are about 5 items that are related to bonding having to do with similar infrastructure and landscape improvements. Those bonds, the town has approved as to the duration, amounts, and form of the bonds. Those will be executed once the underlying improvements are complete, and those are the similar ones that are being picked up on those as-builts. There are bonds related to the neighbor at the corner of Roaring Brook Road and 117. Those are, Summit is ready to make the payment on those. They're just waiting for a final agreement or release with the homeowner. Otherwise, that money will be could be placed into an escrow so that it's available to that owner. New York State DOT, the work is largely done. New York State DOT issued its final punch list. Dave Walsh is coordinating the final completion of that punch list. Once those items are complete, it's expected that DOT will hopefully issue what Bob Scioli has called a no objection letter.
Matt, is the recent work that we've seen out there at the corner of 117 and Reader's Digest, Roaring Brook Road, excuse me, is that related to this kind of work, or is that just separate and apart and maintenance and repair work from the DOT?
Actually, I'll let Dave. I'm not sure if that's related to that or not. Okay, I think Dave's just connecting back to audio. When he gets on, we can ask him to clarify that.
Okay.
In terms of the improvements, there's a final sewer main that's going to be undergoing pressure testing. Our office, Dave Walsh, have been coordinating that through the testing company, and then the town will obviously be informed of when that's going to happen so that they can be aware. The buffer properties, those are those properties along Roaring Brook Road. The improvements and landscaping are in. I believe it needs a final inspection, so we'll be coordinating that with Dennis's office. And then what's on this matrix still is the formation of the sewer district, although that was recently approved by the town board earlier this month. So that we haven't moved that off just yet, but that has gone through its process.
Great. Okay.
I have a question about 117 and Roaring Brook. I know at one time I had suggested that people, if they made a turn coming from the south and were too fast, that they might run up on the over the dirt path and everything and hit somebody. To to a certain extent, a minor extent, I'm happy to see that, that a somewhat sturdy, I guess, I don't know what to call it, but it mounts and it has the traffic safety. It's now safe to walk. At least there's something there that maybe would stop the vehicle that I'm hypothesizing about from causing human damage. But is there anything else that's going to be done there? Because I raised this months ago.
There's nothing that I know of that was shown. This is within the DOT right of way or along 117.
Well, it's really turning into Roaring Brook and making a wide turn and ending up or losing control. There's no curb, or anything that would slow anybody down except now this walk or don't walk sign. So I'm still somewhat concerned about safety there, particularly with the future of children crossing there once the pathway is developed, along 117 into Annandale.
So this is at the northwest corner, is that correct?
North.
At the
Yes, I
Chapel
think so.
Crossing corner?
North side, yeah, and it's north. I
Northwest,
guess
yeah.
it would be northeast.
Maybe, Matt, you can put up a map so Dick can annotate it.
Hmm.
Even if you put up the subdivision, it's flat.
Right.
Yeah, I guess you would say, it's
So is it
down at
this?
the bottom, Bedford Road, New York State Route 117, and it's right where the cursor is right now.
Mm-hmm. Right there.
And if you come in too fast there, it's too flat. It's not, because the walkway comes down towards the intersection and puts the people at ground level as opposed to, 20 feet away, it's maybe 3 or 4 feet high, the walkway.
All right, so part of the walkway is in the New York State right of way, and as you can see, or as you may recall, both along 117 and along Roaring Brook Road, there were narrow strips of land that are to be dedicated as part of the master subdivision to either one DOT or to the town. So we could ask Mazer as to whether DOT would allow for that. So we could check on that for you.
Would you please? I mean, even a curb would help.
Can anybody hear me now? I had problems with my audio.
Yes.
Yes.
Dave, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. You may have seen my frustration. So, we just finished the DOT approved punch list, and there were some minor modifications made down in that area, particularly with the pedestrian pole that's there. Certainly, we can ask Mazer if the DOT would approve anything else to go down there, but as of now, what is there is what the DOT has approved in terms of both the path and the locations of the ped pole and the walkway across Route 117 to the bus stop.
Well, just putting a concrete curb along the roadside face of the where the pedestrian item is and moving it out a couple feet. You just need a couple feet. You need like maybe 4 feet of something to, wake the guy up who's driving.
Yeah, I think to Dick's point is somewhere between the main entrance to Chappaqua Crossing and that intersection.
Yeah.
And that turn lane starts to develop. As that turn lane starts to develop, the proximity of the walking path is quite close to that area. So I think that's what Dick is referring to.
Absolutely.
And I think he's asked a couple of times if there might be a barricade or some sort of protective device put into place to add some additional protection or move the path away a little bit more if that's easier and possible.
Can I just ask to be clear, Dick, your concern is the left-hand turn onto Roaring Brook Road there. Someone might take it too wide and end up in that pedestrian area?
Yes.
Okay. So it would be potentially some device, a curb or a guardrail or bollards or something that would be at the corner and then running for a distance, maybe just a short distance, but along Roaring Brook Road.
Yeah, it doesn't, I don't think it has to be more than 5 or 6 feet,
Okay, well,
particularly with the pedestrian pole there. That could be the beginning of something that, moves, 5 or 6 feet towards the west.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea because there are people who, I mean, it's just human nature, try and beat the light. And there's every once in a while, things get icy and slick after a rain. So I think it's a reasonable thing to ask DOT if we can maybe do something about that.
And maybe it all can be done on Roaring Brook as opposed to, Route 117. Because I'm not worried about the other turn, where you're coming from Mount Kisco and you're making a turn into Roaring Brook as a right-hand turn. That's going to be okay.
Okay, let us ask Major about that and we'll get back to you.
okay.
Thank you.
So Matt and Andy, on that list of various conditions that we have outstanding on the retail side, what do we think in terms of what the ETA might be on those deliverables? I mean, obviously the DOT and the DEP are outside of everyone's control. So, but of those things that are within our control, is it reasonable to expect that we might have those done in the next 60 to 90 days or so? As much as we love to see you, it was with some sadness that I took out my Christmas stocking for Felix once again and put it on my mantle.
Yeah, actually,
So
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Dave, could you just reiterate how close we are on this CO? We live this every day.
yep,
In terms of when you think that'll be completed. So we want the Christmas stocking to stay out.
yes, we do. There over the last week or so, there's been a flurry of activity, and the majority of the open items are bond related, and it's our understanding from Nick Ward Willis that those bonds have been reviewed and essentially approved and ready for execution. We do have some conditions that we are working with Bob Scioli and other town staff on in terms of retesting one sewer line and uncovering a paved over manhole that was just recently discovered last week. We should be done with the ceiling on Roaring Brook Road. That was an item that Bart Carey and I had met on site with a couple of, I guess about 2 weeks ago. So, there's very few items in our opinion that are remaining. We did have a discussion with Mr. Lewis regarding his payment for to resolve his condition, which was, I believe, 17C. So we hope to have that wrapped up by the end of this week. But overall, I think once we have the item of the regrading on the back retention pond that we've worked out with Bob and his team, and as well as the guys from DTS, that's scheduled to begin this week. It should only take a few days. And then there's 1 or 2 paving repairs on site that need to be done to bring everything into code compliance. We will hopefully have the guys sign off and finish the rest of the conditions. But I think we're really on the 5-yard line, so to speak, to be able to bring this through. I think we're closer now than we have ever been.
Dave, how long before we have all this finished? So Bob just freaked me out, was talking 60 to 90 days. We're talking, we think we have this done.
I think we're having it done in I think we'll have physically we'll have this work done in a couple of weeks, barring any severe weather, which we're not anticipating. There's, the bonds, like the majority of the open items are bond and administrative. So, in terms of the physical work, there's only a few items left.
Terrific. That's
And
great.
we have those items that are, as Matt mentioned earlier, as-built related items. And then once those as-built related items are finished, then we also have the dedication, and that'll follow immediately after the as-built.
So Bob, keep this Christmas stocking on the mantle. we believe we could have the CO before it's time for Santa to fill the stocking, which would allow you to present me with a Christmas gift that I've been waiting for 3 years to get.
Is that our $1 check for the auditorium? Because we really want
Yes.
that check.
Yeah, that is actually but that check goes to Greenfield, who sold out about 60 days ago.
There you go. Yeah. So we don't even get to enjoy it.
Okay, good.
But we'll
Sounds
take the dollar. We'll take whatever you give us.
No, absolutely.
great. Well, it sounds like we're making good progress. So that's really good.
We are, Bob, and I think it's
Glad to hear it.
important to point out that, you know, we've been working closely with Bob and the town staff, and they've been very good with us and understanding. So we're hoping
Right.
to continue that and get it going.
Great. Well, glad to hear you are in the red zone and moving
We
forward.
are.
Good. Excellent. Terrific. Okay, Andy, do you want to bring us up to date, or Matt, up to date on any kind of changes that you want to mention before we take a look at memos from Sabrina and Bob?
No, we have made a submission in October of the full site plan
Yep.
set. There were no changes per se. There were further detail was provided in response to Bob's memos. We've received his latest memo this week, and there's still a couple things for us to do. So I have Mark Ratz on that, who's worked closely with Bob on all of these items, and we expect to be able to resolve those in short order as well.
Okay. Great. Sabrina, do you want to run through your comments?
Sure. You know, as far as my planning comments, as I said last time, this application is conforming to all planning requirements. So there's really no changes or work to be done there. I did have some comments regarding procedures, which Andy and Matt had addressed as kind of where we were with the satisfaction of conditions in the other, in the retail and in the subdivision. So the board has been updated regarding that. There was one area in my review in regards to the Chapel Performing Arts Center and the work that was to be performed by others. And it has been noted on the plan set forever now that work exists on the plan, but it is to be performed by others. So I was asking for more clarification as to who would be performing that work, as it is now in the construction sequencing plan. And then my last comment was just a statement to the board that in regards to seeker, the applicant in this submission did verify the consistency with the environmental findings of the town board and their actions. There is no substantive changes to the plans, which would deem any additional work would need to be done under seeker. So it is consistent with the town board's determinations last December.
So that means we do not have to issue our own finding statement, that we can just roll that into the resolution as something that we observe that they are consistent with what the town board looked at last year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So Sabrina, if I may, the new ownership, which is myself with the new investment group out of Texas, will be performing the work at Chapac. Ideally, we'd like to mobilize to do that work at the same time that we demoed the 700 building, which is one of the first chores that we take on after we receive the site plan approval and have all the different stormwater permits in place. So it's a single mobilization. If there's a lot of agita on the town's part and you want us to start to do some of that stuff sooner than later, we certainly can do that. But we're the ones who are doing it, and we're essentially ready to do it, as I just discussed.
Okay, maybe we can put a note on the site plan that talks about that. I don't know if there's any agita regarding timing. I'd have to take that back and we can discuss that. It's just a matter of ensuring that it occurs in accordance with the sequence that the planning board is about to approve.
Whatever you guys would like. You heard my comment on mobilization, but because we actually don't physically do this work ourselves, we bring contractors in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that to be consistent and try and get everything done timely, under your mobilization is fine. The question is, are we running into any size issues in accordance with DEP permitting? Working in two different areas of the site, but that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
Or maybe
Okay, good.
Okay, so that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina.
Yep.
Bob, do you want to run through your comments? I mean, the ones that are outstanding, I guess, because we've got your memo here and a lot of these things have been done, completed, and checked off. So if there are any particular issues you want to raise with the applicant or us, please let us know. Is Bob there? Is he muted?
Yes, I was muted. Sorry about that.
That's right.
But anyway, majority, I would say everything they've done, I'm comfortable with as being conditions of approval. I disagree with some of the timing sequences that they put in there, things that can be tweaked out during the performance of the resolution. But I think all of these can be conditions of approval. So that's where I pretty much stand right now. A lot of this information, I think, in my opinion, is mapping and engineering, which I think should be strongly on the plans and needed and required prior to the site development plan, because you can't approve the site development plan and still have a bunch of conditions after the fact to amend it after you sign it. So a lot of these conditions, I think in my mind, will have to be prior to the site plan being signed by the chairman, approved by me. So that's where we differ in theory a little bit. But I think all in all, they did a good job. But I did have one question for you. We can't do much until we get it. Where do we stand with DEP approval on this?
We are, we've made a submission to DEP on the stormwater. We heard back from them, and we're preparing a resubmission to them shortly. So we anticipate that will be able to be achieved. So they've seen conceptually this plan for some time now, and not unlike the site plan itself, it's a matter of the level of detail provided where and when and how. So we're in contact with them. And
I mean, that's going to be a condition of the site development plan signing. So, keep that in mind.
Yeah, we take that under advisement and are certainly aware of that. Thank you.
And just one last note, just for my ease of reviewing. I mean, I made it quite easy for you guys. I redlined everything. I got the PDFs and I put clouds around everything. When you revise the maps, could you do me a favor and number all the revisions, cloud all the revisions so I can review this in a timely manner, as opposed to just saying you did it and I got to spend hours upon hours upon hours to figure out what you did. So that would be greatly appreciated.
We can either do that or send Mark Ratz to your house if you'd like.
I don't know about that.
Okay. And we'll stick with the bubbles as the first course of action.
I think it'd make everyone's life a lot easier. But anyway, thank you. And that's all I really have for now.
Yeah, we discussed a couple of these items offline before, and it was my take that a few of these are important enough that we really want to see these beforehand before we sign off on it. In particular, from my own perspective, this is just my own personal thing. The wall, making sure that we do have something that's going to work. We know that somehow, some way it can be engineered. But what I would hate to see is something that becomes a field change afterwards, and because of engineering reasons, and it really becomes something very different from what we were looking at, what we thought about, and what we approved.
Well, you can always put a condition in the resolution where if any substantial changes to the site plan comes about of a significant change in the design of the wall, they'd have to come back to the planning board.
Okay. Yeah, that probably would be something I would favor. I don't know how the other members are feeling.
I'm okay.
Okay. One thing, could we have a sketch of the Performing Arts Center area up? One thing I noticed is a couple of us have been talking about that other potential loop going into the parking lot, and I didn't even see an option or an alternative sketch to show us how it might work or how it doesn't work or why it's impossible or possible. So that was the one, yeah, in that area. And I think north of the auditorium center and before the termination of the parking area, a few of us had talked about the desirability or possibility of having a cut back into the parking lot going to the west from the loop road, so that there was another access point to the parking area. And we heard last time that of course you would lose parking space or two, and there was some concern with elevation. I see that you have a retaining wall drawn there, but I was looking at some of the other schematics. It didn't seem that beforehand, maybe it's after the raising of the road, there's a difference in elevation that becomes a problem. So do you have such a sketch or something that we can just
Yes,
see?
we do.
Fantastic.
Andy?
Yes, actually, we have a sketch. Before you leave that, Matt. So the raising of the loop road, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, requires a retaining wall on the west side, right there.
Mm-hmm.
That raises the road about 10 feet at its highest point from where that existing dip occurs there. So once you start the retaining wall, it would not be possible to connect back down into the parking lot. Or actually, once you start the grading for the retaining wall, it would not be possible to now connect down into the parking lot. You'd have to leave the road down at the low level to be able to do that. What we did do, based on our discussion at the last meeting, was to look at a supplemental walkway from the point where you cross the street to the auditorium to serve spaces to the north. And so this is what we looked at in blue. There was a discussion as to whether there would be a supplemental walk in order to shorten the walk, perhaps for people parking on that side of the area. And so as you see here, that could be done with some grading and with the loss of one space. When we looked at it a little bit zoomed out, we wondered, though, how many people would actually use that walk. If you go to the next. When I go to park someplace, I try to park as close to the entry as I can. And so I created this diagram just to test myself how many people might use such a walk if it was installed. And so especially if you come from the loop road, you would entering just near the stair where that little target mark is, you're probably going to try and park as close to that point as you could. And if we look at concentric circles, the people that might walk to the new walk, the supplemental walk, we dotted in blue, and the ones that would likely walk to the center walk were in red. So there's a table up top to count the number of spaces in the concentric circles. So within the first circle, which is just arbitrarily is 200 feet out from the entry point, there's 121 spaces, of which 11, or about 9%, are in blue. And as you go out, it gets a little bit higher. The next circle is almost 200 spaces, and about 20% of those spaces are in the blue zone. And the last circle is 275 spaces, which I'm not sure there'll be ever a time when there'll be 275 parkers, but there it's close to 25%. So I think it's a question of does it make sense from a disturbance point of view? It certainly can be done, but how often it would be used, we raised that question.
Well, that's very interesting. Actually, I mean, my concern with this extra turnoff is just to try to move the cars through the area as people are dropping people off. Because right now people might be dropping off people right there at the main entranceway, in which case they're past the entrance, the left-hand turn entrance into the parking lot. So perhaps, Andy, to your point, I mean, not this walkway, but before the retaining wall, before, I think that's a guide rail that you've got sketched in there, and perhaps a little bit further north of the blue line, in that short distance, I don't know what the drop is it possible to have a turn off of the loop road into the parking lot in that area? So I guess where that, yeah, right there, yeah, exactly. But before the guide rail, actually, I'd say probably a little bit further to the south of that even, but depending upon what the slope might be. And again, you're going to lose maybe a space or two, understandably. But might that work? I certainly understand what you're saying about the raised road and the wall and the retaining wall and the drop further to the north. I get that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the information.
We can look at the slopes. The slopes are fairly, may be prohibitive there, but we can look at it before we get to the wall and see what the.
Yeah.
Even to that point, if it's a one-way in.
Yes.
You know, because then the intention is to get the drop off here and then be able to circle in through here.
Exactly.
So I'm the last guy to ask these kind of questions. You guys know my engineering skills are zero, but when you entered, isn't there a radius, a turn radius that would interfere with some of that additional parking folks?
It would need to be looked at.
Yeah. So
it looks like we would be losing probably 4 or 5 spaces there, right? And, our parking plan is, believe it or not, is tight. I know everybody thinks we have a sea of parking out there, but when we look at occupying the office building, we're a little tight. Not that 4 or 5 spaces would matter, I guess, that much, but, it's just, I think we'd be losing more than 1 or 2, that's for sure.
Okay, I understand. Well, if we could look at that, I think it would be, to Sabrina's point, look at it in terms of what the turning radius might be and what the angle might be, what the slope might be. It might be too many issues and just prohibitive, but at least I think we should look at it, really explore that. I certainly understand what Andy was speaking about before with the turnoff much further to the north. It looks so short and so easy, but when you realize it's a 10-foot drop, it's not so easy.
But also, do you have a map, Matt, of the entire site so that we can kind of see the traffic pattern if you were to drop off at the Chapac and then continue around? Do you have to go all the way around?
You have to go all the way around. We talked about this over and over again.
Several times.
This is nothing new. So we understand you have to go all the way around and make a left turn down around the curve.
Yeah.
All the way.
This is the other entrance to the parking right here.
Yeah, right in there. And then you got to work your way back up through several levels of topography to get back up to where you want to park your car to go to an event.
Yep.
So this is a little bit frustrating because, I today just opened up the drawings and looked just to check to see what the slopes are. It's not a difficult thing to read. Well, actually on this drawing, it is kind of difficult to read the topography because the drawing is just loaded with layer after layer. But it's drawing number, maybe you can get it up. It's LR-2.0. But it's a little bit, it's somewhere around the neighborhood. And Bob Cioli, you can help us with this. It may be too steep, but it looks to me from proposed curb level or pavement level to down to the parking lot, depending on where you go, it's roughly about a 10% slope. And I don't know whether that's considered too steep for a little a driveway that gets you down to a parking area or not.
It's going from 406, say, to about 404 from what I see. 406 right here. Let me show it.
This is 402 at the bottom of this.
Wait up.
Why don't you guys use color?
Goes from 406, and I think you would end up at here.
That's 406 right here.
You would land
down there is 402.
You probably land here, which is about 401.
It depends where you're going, but the maximum grade, they can always get a variance, but the maximum grade on the driveway and commercial is no more than 10%.
Well, this is 10%.
Yeah, but you're gonna have You got to worry about the apron, which can't be more than 5, and then you got 10%, then you get a flat area. So it's going to, they just have to do a profile, like Sabrina and Bob said, see if it's feasible.
Right.
And take a look at it.
So
But I don't know what
Bob,
would we call this, a driveway or just a ramp? What would we call this, Bob?
Right. It's a drive.
Well, whatever it's called, it can't exceed the grade. But,
Okay.
So
it's
how
just
about
got to
if
be
we-
looked at creatively and see what they can do.
How
Well,
about if
there's-
Andy and
There's
Matt-
another point. Don't forget, there is an exit to the left of this drawing. That is, if you can move the master drawing to the right, more. Okay, right? Let me see where we are here. Yeah, up here.
BRO
here is-
20.
What?
At the BRO 20 mark line sign, right?
Yeah, and that's an exit.
That's exit, yes. It
So-
passes the ATM.
That's right. So you don't have to go all the way around to get out. You get in there, and then this is open. A lot of this is open, and then you can exit here in BRO 20, and you can also exit again for the main entrance and exit. So you can't drive in really. I think it's one way only. So, but it is.
The problem is not getting out. The problem is dropping somebody off at the front of the building and then being able to park, to getting into the parking lot.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be, Tom, wouldn't you just drop the person off a little bit before the steps? In other words, so you could still make the turn? You're on the loop road, you drop them off, where I don't have control of the cursor. As evident by the last 15 years, I don't have control of much. But you do your drop off before the entrance to the parking lot.
You're not gonna drop somebody off in front of the open parking lot. You're gonna drop them off where the sidewalk is.
I'm going to
So
drop
wait
them
a
off
minute,
here.
let me respond to the place which looks like it's provided for a curbside drop off, which is where that 408.4 elevation is, that sidewalk there,
Right.
right in there. You can't drop any, how are you going to drop somebody off? You'd essentially be making almost a U-turn to get into that.
Right.
And doing that, you'd be fighting the traffic. I mean, these are events, right? Where people are coming, is a lot of people coming at the same time. It's going to be a problem. And you'd be backing up traffic along that road as well while you're doing the drop. It's just, it just doesn't, to me, Felix, it just geometrically doesn't look like it works. So the drop off, at least, if we're going to do curbside, if we're going to assume we want curbside drop off on the loop road, and the way to do it, put a sidewalk past that point, put a sidewalk to the right of the building. And so the cars can sort of stop and drop people off without interfering with the traffic at that intersection, which is going to be, somewhere around there, Bob. Thank you. And then get your left turn down into the parking lot. And then you've got seems to me you have a sensible circulation plan.
Right.
And I am concerned about the idea of not having a curbside drop off as close to the building as you can have. The building is already raised in elevation by, I don't know, was it 10 feet or something? I don't know exactly. I have to look at the grades. But you have a bunch of steps to get up there. It's quite a distance from the road. And we get inclement weather. We have, people with families and young children and, for events that call for, that kind of an audience. We have people who are elderly, who are infirm. How do they get close to the building? And to assume that they're going to drop off in the parking lot and make that walk, I just don't think that's reasonable.
I think it's really important to try to figure out a way to engineer that left turn. Even if it's not just a direct 90-degree, maybe you cut the slope a little bit and you come down at an angle. If it's just going to be an inch, exactly. Thank you, Bob. Something like that to make the grade work.
Well,
all right, let us take a look at it. We'll look at all the components of the drop-off and pull-in process, and we'll bring it back to you.
One other thought. One other thought on this. Can you have an interior drop-off? where all the handicap parking slots are. You could say initially, early on, you can't park here right by the door because that's where we're going to have a drop-off point in here. And then, granted, then the people have to find another way around, but it's probably shorter to loop out the back and then come around back onto BR 020. Maybe that's not feasible and it's too much trouble, but it would just be paint, maybe at a sign or two.
Well, there is an opportunity to pull into the loading space at the back of the auditorium, turn around, and then drop off somebody at the entry level. That would be the same walkway used by those future accessible spaces. So if someone were older and wanted to come out at the same level, that would be the optimum place to drop off rather than at the bottom of the stair.
That would be the optimum place to drop off, but to ask somebody to go to the loading dock and then do a 3-point turn to get back out when people are coming into the, I mean, come on, that's not a reasonable circulation plan. That doesn't.
But you open the gates in the back and let people out.
We open the gates in the back, then somebody has got to drive all the way around again to get back to the parking lot. And I don't know how happy Toll Brothers would be having that event traffic coming through their neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think that there's a relatively, I hope that in terms of the grades, I believe that there might be, but I'm not an engineer. I hope that there might be a relatively simple fix to get the loop going, and then put a walkway on the loop road in a place where it doesn't interfere with traffic and it's close to the stairs of the building. Essentially,
take a look at that.
red lines.
Yep.
And it's not anybody's intent here to make this progress, this project and process any longer or any more anguished, than it is and has become. But I want to just point out, we've been asking for this for a long time. And so I think it's time just to solve it. But it's up to you guys. It's not solved yet.
Matt, I think you had proposed, you gave us some information also about speed bumps.
Speed humps.
On the loop road?
There's speed humps. They're no longer bumps.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, they are. If I can just comment on this, I appreciate the work that was done. I don't know, who led the charge, whether it was Dave or Matt or whoever, but got a hold of the traffic engineer and had some examples of where these things have been done. There was an example, I think, in the document in Pleasantville. It's probably in this document that's on the screen right now. And to me, they function more as, the term I guess is hump as opposed to bump. But the ones that are there now really are, I think there are 4 or 5 of them, and they're really very severe. These look to me to be traffic friendly and still get the job done. So I really want to say thanks to the team for chasing this down. And it looks to me that it will work, and I think meet the criteria that we need to be shooting for.
Yep. And I've bottomed out a couple of times on the Pleasantville one, so it really works well.
So can we, Tom, we were talking about this at one of the team meetings, and there was nobody who wanted to take the bet that you would forget about speed bumps. Nobody was taking the under. Everybody was taking the over. So, but now that we've addressed the over, can we say that this issue is resolved?
Well, I think it calls for a Bob Ciola look, and if Bob has any concerns about it, I know he'll share them with us. But from my point of view, it looks like it's a well-established traffic device, which is done in public places, has some history to it with the appropriate signing.
I agree, Tom, because I see them up in Poughkeepsie. They use them in the Galleria Mall all over the place, and they work fine.
Right.
They serve the purpose of what they do if they're properly designed. As a matter of fact, they approved these in the manual uniform traffic control devices by New York State. So, great. I mean, they're used all over the place. So, definitely condone them. If the planning board wants to see them and they did a beautiful job on the design, I have no objection to this at all.
Would Jerry Marshall have any objections at all, Bob, as far as you understand?
This is all privately owned. They don't maintain it.
Oh, okay. This will not be dedicated to the Loop Road?
Absolutely not. This will be
Oh,
made
okay.
We own
privately.
this? We
Yeah, we own
this?
this, Felix. Yep,
Yes.
yeah, we own the road.
Yeah, don't tell Jerry he's got a snowplow this, he'd get a heart
Right.
attack. No, I think it's a great design. It's used in privately owned plazas all over the place. I've seen them, they work well.
Okay, so Tom, I'm going to be bold and say resolved.
Oh, man, I hate to say it, but I think that's
Come
a
on.
yes.
Come on, it doesn't hurt.
Oh,
Try.
it's very painful.
Ah, all right.
But yeah, you got a yes. Good job. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for chasing this down. I really appreciate it.
And Tom, that thanks goes to Matt Steinberg because I called Uncle on it and I said, I don't know what to do. And then so he contacted Mazer.
Yeah, I would think Mazer knows a little bit about traffic.
Yeah.
Well, very good.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Great. Well done. Thanks. Okay, is there anything else? Any other board member or anyone else have a question or issue at this point?
Bob, I have one small thing. And if I can find it. On page 3 of the Divney Tong memo, ST8, it says a draft declaration of easement covenants and restrictions was submitted to the planning board council on May 15. Was that to me? If it was to me, would you send it to me again?
Yeah, I sent it to you, Clinton. It's Janet. I sent it to you a few times. I think most recently in August. I will resend it to you.
It'll save me looking for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Okay, thank you very much. And I assume you sent it the last time in August because I did not respond to it in May.
But don't search the files for that. Don't worry about it. Just we move on and start over again.
Yeah.
Saves a lot of lawyer money, you know?
That's right, that's right.
Was that one of my comments in my memo? What was that pertaining
No,
to?
it was you had commented on it and it was their response.
Okay. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, if they go through me on these, so I'm in a loop on these things because I got to kind of keep track of these conditions that are met, and I'll circulate it out if you don't mind.
You mean after I review it?
Oh, no, I don't want to review it. Just come through me so I'm in a loop on it so I know who's looking at it and who's going to sign off on it. That's all. No, I'm not an attorney. Believe you me. That's all.
He's just the master keeper of the checklist. That's all.
That's all I am.
Well, no. Great. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? If not, I'd say we're ready to move this to a public hearing. And I think we looked at our schedule. So if the applicant's available and not out shopping, Felix, we might be available for December 1, our next time we meet, if that works for you guys. I'd entertain a motion to set a public hearing for December 1.
Motion. So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Dick,
Yes.
Eldad,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'm yes, so that motion carries 4-0. So we'll get the notice out. We have enough time. We did confirm that we have enough time to notice it for December 1. So we'll get that going and we'll see you guys next on December 1 for a public hearing.
Before we go, what are we going to do if there are people who want to ask questions at this point in time, even though we don't have to listen to them and we always have a courtesy thing that we do? Is there anybody that you want to, what do you want to do, Bob?
We can see. Pam, is there anyone at all? I don't see anything in the chat, but Pam is.
There's one attendee, but they do not have their hand raised. They're on a phone. If they want to raise their hand, they can dial *9. and then *6 to unmute themselves, but there's only one attendee and they don't have their hand raised right now.
Okay. Then
We've
we're
really
done.
lost our audience.
Well, we think about not showing up ourselves, but we don't have that option.
That just goes back to the Christmas stocking thing.
Yep.
All right, great.
Well, we'll see you guys on the 1st. Thank
Yep.
you. Thanks very much.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a
Good
good
night.
evening.
And I think that's all we have for this evening, right?
Correct.
So we have our next special meeting. When is it? And we'll be getting the documents, on our last discussion on the form-based code and the draft GEIS. And then
Next
when's our next
Thursday.
special meeting? It's after Thanksgiving, isn't it?
December
Sabrina?
3rd.
December 3rd. Okay. So we'll be meeting via doubleheader that week. December 1.
yeah.
and
Right,
December
and we
3rd.
said that if we, depending on timing on the agenda on the 1st, if there's time, we'll hope to get you the information before then, so that if there's time, you can discuss it then too.
Terrific. Okay.
We'll put it on the agenda, and if we need to adjourn the discussion to the 3rd, we can.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. Very good. All right. Is there anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Bob,
I'll move.
Bob,
Yes, Tom?
just one quick thing. I know that last time we had asked for, in preparation for our discussion on the form-based code, that we had asked for a copy of the memo that we sent the town board. It must have been a year ago or something.
Yes.
Thank you for
And
reminding me.
I really think that's an important document because we don't want to be, sending mixed signals or, crossing things up. I think it's important that we be consistent, and if not, we know why.
Yep. Very good. Good
So
idea.
we
Good.
need to have that
Thank you for the
for our
reminder.
meeting.
Great. Okay. Yeah. If you could send that over to us, Felicia, that'd be great.
I will.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you
we'll
so
pull
much.
that out tomorrow. Thanks for the reminder for that.
Yep.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.